In this podcast episode, host and guest Rick Glassman dive deep into themes of personal comfort, boundaries, communication dynamics, social interaction, and authenticity in relationships. The conversation weaves through Rick's personal sensitivities and social experiences, exploring the metaphorical and literal implications of wearing condoms, managing friendships, dating challenges, social games, and the balance between self-love and self-improvement. Their wide-ranging discussion also touches on humor, vulnerability, nervousness, and maintaining genuine human connections in a world full of complex social cues and expectations. Rick opens up about his discomfort with physical intimacy when condoms are involved, equating it to the experience of wearing contact lenses, a constant awareness that distracts from the moment. This sensitivity is tied to his broader experience of tactile and sensory discomfort with clothes and other textures. He argues that true intimacy requires a safe conversational space to acknowledge and navigate these discomforts, emphasizing the importance of clear communication around physical and emotional boundaries before engaging intimately. The discussion broadens into how this theme applies to friendships, emphasizing the importance of knowing and respecting boundaries. Rick shares how he enjoys playful banter and repartee, but struggles when others don't communicate their limits, leading to misunderstandings. He stresses the value of open dialogue in friendships to clarify what playful teasing is welcome and what might be hurtful. This metaphor extends to being able to take off the condom in friendships, meaning interactions without barriers where honest emotions and boundaries can be openly expressed. Rick candidly describes his heightened sensitivity to sensory inputs such as smells, textures, and sounds, which affects not only his clothing choices, but also his comfort in social settings. This sensitivity influences how he manages his environment, like insisting guests remove outdoor clothes or use blankets indoors to protect his comfort. He acknowledges that this trait is a challenge, but one he accepts while also working to find compromises that respect both his needs and those of others around him. A significant part of the conversation revolves around Rick's struggle to interpret others' feelings and reactions accurately. He shares his history of mistakenly assuming he knows what others think or feel, and how that led to emotional pitfalls. Through experience, he learned that clear verbal communication is essential because assumptions often lead to misunderstandings. Rick advocates for explicitly asking questions about how others feel, even multiple times if necessary, to avoid miscommunication that can hurt relationships. The podcast explores the metaphor of social interaction as a game with unwritten rules. Rick enjoys calling out the game, meaning he observes and questions the underlying dynamics and expectations rather than just playing by default. His co-host contrasts this with their approach of working within those social rules to achieve the desired interaction. This contrast highlights differing social bravery and preferences, whether to openly disrupt the script or to skillfully navigate within it. They reflect on the unwritten and often ambiguous social codes that govern conversation, dating, and friendship. Humor is a recurring motif in the discussion as a tool for managing awkwardness, shame, and discomfort. Rick talks about using humor, like joking about farting, to diffuse embarrassment and create connection. He stresses that finding comedy in vulnerability can transform an awkward situation into something bonding. He also touches on the fine line between authenticity and performativity on stage and in life, noting that humor can help bridge those spaces. Rick shares a personal dating story, illustrating the frustrations and complexities of timing, communication, and intention when meeting someone new. He reflects on maintaining honesty about his feelings, managing expectations, and dealing with repeated delays that tested his patience and interest. This narrative sheds light on dating from the perspective of someone who values respect, prioritization of time, and clear communication, while grappling with the inevitable messiness of human interactions and attraction. The conversation emphasizes the desire to feel seen and included, whether in romantic, social, or professional contexts. Rick talks about creating an inviting and safe environment in his living room podcast studio by having guests take their shoes off and removing barriers, both literal and figurative. This practice fosters a genuine vibe where people can drop the performative facade and be themselves, facilitating deeper connection and comfort. They discuss the tension between accepting oneself completely and striving to grow or improve. Rick reflects on this delicate balance, warning against extremes like harsh self-judgment or complacency. Using analogies like a balance board, they illustrate how life often requires micro-adjustments to maintain equilibrium between embracing imperfections and pursuing betterment. Joe Hudson's concept of Veagal authority, a neurophysiological idea referring to whose nervous system is leading an interaction, is introduced. The discussion touches on co-regulation, where one person's emotional or nervous state influences the others. Rick shares how he modulates his energy to create ease in conversations, sometimes intentionally slowing down his responses to calm a partner's anxiety, illustrating a nuanced social empathy. Rick and the host reflect on the difference between professional presence, showing up and doing a job despite nerves or imperfect preparation, and being fully present and authentic in vulnerable moments. In comedy, acting, or conversation, they highlight the value of presence over being funny or performing in a conventional sense, noting that genuine connection often arises when one strips away the pressure for perfection. They analyze what makes a social interaction engaging or not boring, focusing on reciprocal interest and contribution. Rick proposes that beyond humor or charisma, showing sustained interest in another person through asking questions and active listening is often more impactful than trying to be the most entertaining storyteller. This approach builds ease and connection, especially for those who are shy or less socially confident. Throughout the episode, the importance of clarity about intentions, whether in friendship, dating, or collaboration, is emphasized. Rick discusses the difficulty and necessity of balancing honesty with tact, pointing out that underlying motives often shape interaction quality. Transparency, when delivered with kindness and inclusion, can prevent misunderstandings and foster trust. Rick and the host explore the idea that people fall in love not just with what is pleasurable or easy, but with the distinctive, sometimes imperfect parts of each other's personality. They advocate embracing spiky bits and quirks as essential to authentic connection, while also recognizing the craft needed to navigate social norms and the need for personal growth. Rick reveals his own discomfort with small talk and typical social scripts like, "How are you?" which he tends to experience as superficial and challenging to engage with naturally. This prompts insights into how people learn socially conditioned communication patterns and how they can be adapted or reinterpreted to suit authentic connection rather than rote exchange. Rick shares how he manages nerves before comedic performances by focusing on presence and accepting his current best state rather than fixating on outcomes. This outlook exemplifies a healthy psychological framework that applies beyond the stage to everyday social and professional situations. The conversation repeatedly connects physical experiences, like condom use and sensory sensitivity, with emotional and communicative intimacy, underscoring how physical comfort often hinges on emotional safety. Rick advocates for conversations that prepare and enable both partners to be fully present and authentic with each other. Stories about networking, professional boundaries, and making requests, like inviting someone to a podcast, lend practical wisdom to handling social dynamics without overstepping or causing discomfort. Rick emphasizes respect and timing, akin to building trust credentials before asking for favors or deeper engagement. Throughout, Rick illustrates how humor can transform everyday awkwardness, be it moving ping pong balls, eating hot soup, or dealing with bodily functions, into moments of lightness and relatability. This perspective encourages a playful approach to social challenges and personal quirks. They discuss social frequency as a metaphor for shared wavelength or compatibility, highlighting that not every connection should be forced and that friendship and relationship success depend in part on energetic resonance. Recognizing when frequencies are close enough to communicate well is key to meaningful bonds. Rick touches on feelings of exclusion and the ongoing effort to balance caring about others' opinions with maintaining self-worth. He candidly reflects on growing awareness that not everyone loves or wants him, which can be painful but ultimately clarifying for healthy boundaries and realistic expectations. The episode is permeated by conversations about vulnerability, whether crying upon realizing one has hurt someone's feelings or revealing personal insecurities. Rick demonstrates how emotional honesty, while difficult, can lead to deeper understanding and connection. The broader narrative addresses how modern relationships navigate uncertainty, projection, and social complexity. Rick emphasizes the importance of ongoing, transparent communication and mutual understanding to avoid the pitfalls of miscommunication and unspoken expectations. Rick shares practical tips for behavior, such as limiting pre-interview or pre-interaction foreplay to avoid exhaustion and maintain spontaneity, as well as the value of concise, clear questions that respect conversational momentum while fostering engagement. Rick values the role of friends and peers who give honest feedback, such as telling him when he's being too loud, considering this critical for personal growth and social attunement. He sees this feedback as information rather than criticism, essential for navigating complex social landscapes. Rick opens up about how his OCD influences personal habits and social rituals, like removing outdoor clothes indoors and managing environmental sensitivities. He discusses how he adapts to these challenges while striving not to impose his needs excessively on others, exemplifying a balance between self-care and social consideration. Their dialogue touches on how people in social settings regulate each other's moods and energy levels, consciously or unconsciously, and how becoming aware of that process enables better interactions and emotional safety. Rick articulates the importance of self-awareness in recognizing one's own social patterns, emotional triggers, and communication styles. Such awareness can help navigate relationships more mindfully and authentically, reducing misunderstandings. Drawing from examples in acting, comedy, and music, the guests discuss how artistic expression helps individuals find and refine their voice or accent within social and professional environments, allowing authenticity to shine through structure and discipline. Finally, Rick advocates for a radical transparency where people openly share their thoughts and feelings, inviting correction and feedback. While this approach can be exhausting and requires courage, it fosters genuine connections and personal growth that superficial politeness cannot achieve.